For those of you that haven't seen this, I'll just leave this here for a second. It's a Vance Kirk 2028 presidential run. Something extremely unusual appears to be happening inside Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk built the organization. He was the founder, the face, the voice. For millions of people, Charlie was Turning Point USA. But after his death, something happened that many observers say feels strange. Instead of a long transition, instead of a search for leadership, instead of months of restructuring, within a surprisingly short period of time, Erika Kirk began appearing in positions connected to Charlie's former influence: leadership, political appointments, public representation. And at the same time, Turning Point USA staff are still heavily using Charlie Kirk's name and his show to reach audiences and generate revenue. Tonight, we're going to walk through the timeline, what Charlie controlled, what Erika appears to control now, how fast the transition happened, and why some people say the whole situation feels unnaturally fast. This isn't about rumors. It's about documented roles, timelines, and organizational structure. And when you put all the pieces together, the picture gets interesting. Let's watch a few short videos to set the tone before we look at the timeline and the transition.
He was always taking notes, and he left behind these blueprints for her. And
for you.
Yeah, there you go.
And for you, Mikey.
Yeah. And
go ahead. And I said, I don't know if you want to take it because I don't think you're going to have the same effect as the president of Turning Point USA. But you know what? Between you and me and our listeners, I'm not giving up on the Vance Kirk ticket.
Well, it's very exciting.
So how do you go from being a stay-at-home mother who has some dabblings in some businesses and stuff like that in Turning Point USA with no political background? Obviously, there's some military connection there because of Fort Huachuca and her parents and that kind of stuff, and maybe like the Tesseract schools and things that Candace has been talking about. But how do you go from someone with no political experience whatsoever to going for president or vice president? And who's going to fund all this? Is this run going to be funded by TPUSA donors? Is TPUSA going to be paying for her portion of this?
Beautiful moments of my life. Children, having a husband, being able to create and build something so incredible. And again, yes, balance is an illusion. I bring my children to the office. I have them with me constantly. We have a phenomenal team.
Her children must live in the office because she's always working. She's always doing something. She's always somewhere. She's always on the move. Now, this could have been normal for their family in general, but her being the only parent, I have to imagine those kids are being pretty neglected. That's just my opinion.
It doesn't just fall on my shoulders. Charlie was very good about creating and intentionally building a machine where it turns from founder-led to vision-led. And he shared everything with me. I knew his goals. I knew what his vision was for things. So this is not out of my orbit. This is not uncomfortable for me.
I think she's a little bit too comfortable. What do you think?
And it's not, because I'm picking up a mantle that I understand and that I know that Charlie has entrusted to me, the team has entrusted to me, the Lord has entrusted to me, and I take that very seriously.
So do you find it strange that the spouse of Charlie Kirk is entrusted by his entire team, the entire board, apparently God, President Trump, who's backing her completely and has given her an assignment we'll look at here in a minute, and Charlie himself, who said that women should be at home while the man works? Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA in 2012. At the time, he was just 18 years old. The organization began as a student-focused political movement targeting college campuses. Over the next decade, it exploded in influence. Turning Point created campus chapters nationwide, large political conferences, media networks, student activist training programs. And Charlie himself became a major conservative media personality. He hosted The Charlie Kirk Show, which reached millions of listeners across YouTube, podcasts, and radio. But Charlie wasn't just a host. He held multiple layers of influence. Inside the organization, he was the founder, the president, a strategic leader, key fundraiser, and the brand's identity. Many organizations have leaders, but TPUSA was built almost entirely around one central figure, Charlie Kirk, which means when he passed away, there was a massive vacuum. Not just leadership, but influence, brand power, political access, and media reach. When founders of organizations die, transitions normally take time. Boards meet, executives debate strategy, interim leaders step in. Sometimes the organization even struggles for years because replacing a founder is extremely difficult. Think about companies like Apple after Steve Jobs, or political organizations that lose their primary voice. There's almost always a period of instability, but the situation at Turning Point appeared to unfold much faster. Within a relatively short period, leadership influence started consolidating again, and the person appearing in that orbit was Erika Kirk. Charlie's wife had previously appeared publicly in connection with Turning Point events and media, but after Charlie's death, her presence began appearing in connection with new roles and responsibilities. One of the developments that drew attention was her reported appointment to the U.S. Air Force Academy Board of Visitors. This board is responsible for oversight and advisory functions related to the Air Force Academy. Members are appointed by the President of the United States, which is what happened in Erika's case, and also congressional leadership. These positions are often filled by individuals with backgrounds in military leadership, defense policy, government service, or national security, which is why observers quickly began asking what qualifications led to the appointment. And while we're talking about qualifications, Barron's been digging into her educational background along with others, and things aren't adding up. After his episode, there were many changes made to her LinkedIn profile and education, including removing items that were shown to be false. She still hasn't responded back to if she was summa cum laude or not. Now, how quick did the takeover happen relative to Charlie's death? Immediately, possibly even before, according to emerging evidence. At the same time, her influence inside the Turning Point orbit appeared to grow, and this is where the timeline becomes important. To understand why this transition matters, we need to look at the spheres that Charlie occupied. He operated across three major power centers: organizational leadership. Charlie oversaw the strategy, direction, and messaging of Turning Point USA. Media influence. Through the Charlie Kirk Show, he controlled a massive media platform, millions of views, daily commentary, national political influence, political access. Charlie had connections and advisory roles connected to political circles, which meant he wasn't just running an organization, he was operating at the intersection of media, politics, and activism. And when he passed away, those power centers didn't disappear. They had to go somewhere. Here's another element that people have noticed. Even after Charlie's death, the organization continues to heavily use his name and brand. Staff members still reference and use the Charlie Kirk Show, which, by the way, it's been 6 months. I think it's time to consider changing the name. Many people post daily on their streams that it's creepy and disrespectful to keep using his name for profit and his viewer base. Content connected to Charlie's legacy continues to circulate, though a lot have been wiped as well. Now, to be clear, this isn't unusual in itself. Organizations often keep legacy brands alive, but it raises an interesting dynamic because while leadership structures are shifting, public-facing brand still revolves around Charlie, which means the organization can continue leveraging his name recognition, his audience, his media brand to reach millions of viewers with their influence. And that creates an unusual situation where the organization is simultaneously transitioning leadership while still relying heavily on the founder's identity. When observers began laying out the timeline, one key factor keeps coming up: speed. Because leadership transitions in large political organizations normally move very slowly. There are internal processes, donor relationships, board approvals, strategic planning. But here, several developments seem to happen rapidly. Appointments, leadership appearances, pushing the book, public influence. Now again, rapid transitions aren't automatically suspicious. Sometimes organizations simply move quickly to maintain stability. But the timeline has prompted people to ask questions about how the transition was structured behind the scenes and when it was structured. Some of the questions people ask include, was there a formal succession plan inside Turning Point USA? Who currently controls the organization's board structure? Who approved leadership changes? What role will Erika Kirk ultimately play in the organization long term? And how long will Charlie's brand remain the public face of the movement? These are not accusations, they're structural questions about how leadership evolves after a founder's death. Because in any large organization, power transitions matter. Charlie Kirk built Turning Point USA into one of the most influential youth political organizations in the country. His voice defined the brand. His presence drove the movement. But after his death, a rapid transition began to take place. Erika Kirk now appears connected to several roles that place her closer to the center of influence, including the president. At the same time, the organization continues using Charlie's name and brand to reach millions of viewers. Whether this is a natural succession or simply a fast restructuring of leadership is something people will continue to closely watch. Because when major organizations shift power this quickly, it always raises questions, and those questions deserve answers. Charlie said to always ask questions. So now I'm going to ask you a question down in the comments. Do you think that Erika thinks she's Charlie Kirk? Did she want these positions so bad that she's becoming Charlie Kirk? Was this preordained? Was this set up ahead of time? Was this transition and all these positions and everything we're seeing across the board, the Vance Kirk ticket, was all of this stuff in place before Charlie's death? Let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this around. And if you want to support the channel, there's links down in the description. And I'll see you on the next one.